think it took for me to start channeling my mind differently. We all experience tragedy, all of us. I literally felt like just killing myself. I can't do this. Like everything I do, I'm failing. I started to dig at myself and say, yo, you're becoming a statistic.
You're a dreamer. You got something you believe in. And that's a rare thing these days. Dreamer.
Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Dreamer Talks, where I sit down with people that are living their dream and doing it in excellence. Today's guest, I have Chelsey Brunson of Morph Mentoring here. I'm super excited about this. Since we've met, it's just cool to meet other people that have vision, but we're here to really get your story. But as tradition here on this show, Chelsey, what is your definition of success?
Okay, my definition of success is reaching your full potential in your purpose.
I like that. So with that, right, reaching your full potential in your purpose, have you identified your purpose? Like, what's your purpose?
My purpose?
Yeah.
My purpose is to help people understand that they have dominion and that they're leaders across the board. So whether you are leading people or you're leading just in your trade and as a person overall or over your trade or what you're able to do, that is your thing. So my purpose is to put you onto purpose. My purpose is to make sure that you're in your lane that you're supposed to be in. And if you're not, help you reevaluate that and see, are you making it lucrative for you financially? Are you working in this because you're supposed to? If it's not lucrative, is it making you happy? Like just being in your purpose overall and making sure that you're on target with it.
How did you reach that place? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that when you talk about, even bring up the topic of purpose, it's like this big thing that they feel like there's so much work necessary to do. Like, how did you arrive at that purpose? Because, like, and we'll get to like what you do, but how did you arrive at that place where okay, this is all about helping other people accomplish their purpose? Because I tell all the people I coach, your purpose has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do about everybody else.
Yeah.
So how did you reach that place where you like discovered like my purpose is to help other people discover their purpose and make it lucrative and basically improve their life? Like, how did you reach that place?
A lot of mistakes.
That's usually what does it.
A lot of mistakes. Oh my gosh. Like seriously, I went to school and I tell a lot of college students I work with, interns, what you're in school for now, you may not ever do it. Like you may go into something completely different. So, going to college, when I first started going to school, I was like, I'm gonna go to school to be a doctor, like a medical doctor. And I got into those classes. It was like, whoa,
It's a different bag.
I'm not smart like this. And in I believe it's my biology class or my anatomy class, like in the beginning, like freshman year of college, we learned about the 7 different intelligences. And so my professor at the time, he was a male. I don't remember his name. I just remember like what he looked like. And so he said to me, I know you want to be a medical doctor and I know that you're a science major and you're doing okay in class, but I don't think you're smart this way. Not saying you're not smart, saying this lane may not be your lane. So when he said that, I'm like, okay, because I was struggling with everything else. Like I'm getting D's and definitely in chemistry and oh my God, biology and physics, science was just like, no, I can't do this. So everything you needed to be a doctor, the schooling, it wasn't clicking for me.
Right.
And so what ended up happening was I took my first psychology class. So now I'm in psychology. And of course you think all psych majors are like, I'm going to be a psych major because I got my own trauma and I want to fix everybody else because we all got trauma. And so I'm in psych and I'm falling in love with psych. And then I just stayed in that major, and I graduated with my associates of science, and then I went on and got a BS, a bachelor's of science in psychology. And then I said, okay, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? Right? Because at first I was like, oh, maybe I'll be a psychiatrist. I'll be this, I'll be that. And so, no, it still wasn't that. And so I went to get my master's, and I always knew from a little girl that I wanted to be Dr. Brunson.
Okay.
So I knew I was going to get a doctorate, like regardless, whether it was a medical doctor or,
Just the
traditional, PhD, EDD, whatever the case may be, I'm going to be a doctor, right? And so what happened was I now am graduating with my BS. I'm bartending. I'm going through all types of stuff, and I don't know which way I'm going. And I'm just, at the time I was in Jersey City. So now I'm learning city life.
Right. That's a different life.
City life was way different.
Yeah.
So now I'm learning city life. By the time I was done with my bachelor's, I ended up getting pregnant with my daughter. So I'm like, what am I going to do? So they told me, someone at school, at college, they told me about alternate route and becoming a teacher. That's I said, a lot of mistakes.
Because I want to stop you there, because you're saying a lot of mistakes, but it sounds like there was a lot of guidance there. Like I understand what you mean when you say mistakes, but you said you were in the science field. Then you had a professor say, hey, you're smart, but I think it should be applied in a different way, which led you down a different path. Talk with me a little bit more about, like, what were the mistakes? Because I'm hearing you kind of say, like, you've been redirected. There's a lot of pivots you had to make, right? Like you said.
Detours, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of detours for sure. But what were, like, the mistakes? Because let me know. What was the mistakes?
I would say that the mistakes was the fact that I was listening to everybody else.
Okay.
So, yes, there was some guidance, but I couldn't hear it clearly. And a lot of times people will tell you, well, maybe you should do this. Like I said, they put me onto alternate route. So alternate route is where you become a teacher, but you didn't go to school for education.
Right.
So I'm getting into that. And now I'm shifting over into the educational school system and everything like that. Like the whole public schools, private schools. And I'm getting into that. And honestly, I was taking the test over and over, and I was like failing. I was trying to figure out like the state test, and every time you fail, you got to pay this and pay that. And all these different detours and mistakes led me to like wanting something that I could not obtain. It wasn't in my control to obtain because I still wasn't, not saying I wasn't smart enough that way, but trying to go that route, I ended up in a classroom and I felt trapped. So then I'm like, I can't help these kids this way. I'm trying to take the test, so I lowered the grades that I wanted to teach. At first, I was like, I think K through 6 in high school, trying to do all these higher grades, right? Trying to help the kids. I always knew I needed to help, right?
Yeah.
So then the next thing you know, I did my P3, got everything for that. That was great. I was ready to work with P3 is preschool to 3rd grade. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I love working. And then I'm in the classroom with these 3rd grade kids and these 2nd grade kids, and they're talking about things that are like vulgar, like just things that are just crazy that kids should not know that young. And I'm like, wait a minute. And then they're telling me stories about how they went home and their mom this and their dad that and all these crazy stories. And I'm like, I feel trapped because now my higher ups in the education system are saying, don't deal with that. You can't talk about that. Don't talk to them about that. Keep quiet. Keep quiet. And so I'm stuck. And I'm like, I'm trapped in this classroom. Maybe I can become a guidance counselor. I have my BS in psychology. Now I'm going to try to be a guidance counselor. Trying to be a teacher, trying to be a guidance counselor. And I just kept hitting a lot of detours. And so finally, I was doing my master's, got my counseling, my requirements to become an LAC, did the courses, did not complete my hours yet, but I did all this schooling, right? And at the end of it, I literally it was for nothing because, not saying it was for nothing because it still made me very educated and I applied everything that I've learned to what I do today. But at that point, my baby brother died as soon as I graduated with my bachelor's into my doctorate. Into my master's. He ended up dying in between. Okay. So while he died, that transition right there put me on my path to purpose. Wow. So it took that catastrophe to happen, that tragedy to happen, to say, sit your butt down.
Yeah. How did you handle that? Like, walk me through that process. So you find out your brother passed away. Like, what was, I guess, was there a conscious decision made to yourself? Like, where, okay, because you said you kind of identified, okay, helping people, right? At that point, it was with kids. But talk me through that process, how you said, like, it took that catastrophe of your brother passing away that really put you on the path to purpose to what you're doing now. Walk me through that process, because I can imagine it was not easy. Like, what was that like? Like, what was that self-talk? What would, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, did you have to, like, really sit down, or was it kind of just a day-by-day thing? Like, talk me through that process for you.
Okay. So right when my brother died, it was 2016 of September, a new school year. And I was getting ready from going to a private school that I was working for, going back into the public school that I was previously working for. I left the public school and went to the private school. They offered me more money and all these benefits and all this stuff. So I said, okay, I'll leave this district and go to this district. And so I went to the new district, and it just wasn't working. Like, and then it was just, the culture there wasn't the best. And when I decided to leave there, I said, you know what, let me call the other district back, see if they will still take me back. They said no problem. I told them what my plans were. They said no problem. It's literally September.
Okay.
September.
I was about to say that's near.
It was literally September. It was a brand new school year. And my brother died September 17th.
Okay.
So literally a new school year. I'm going to work every day and back in my old district and just feeling good and like, yeah, the kids, I'm back, you know. And literally like 2 weeks into the school year, like I said, it was the 17th. My mom called me. It was a Friday night. She said, Chelsey, Tyler's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I blacked out. Of course, I lost it. Everything just like, oh man, I just went crazy that night. And I drove all the way to from Jersey City all the way down to South Jersey, back to where he lived at. And I ended up there because we had to identify the body and everything like that. And it was just crazy, like so crazy that night. And so basically, that whole week is a blur, because that week was when he died and we had to prepare all these things, and I was sick and I had my daughter, and she was only, at the time she was 1. She was a babe. She was 1. And so I also so it's so funny because the week before he died, and my brother was smarter than me. This man was a genius, okay? He's smarter than me. So he literally, a week before he died, he was like, go take the test, because I had to take one more test for the state for teaching. She said, Chelsey, go take the test. You're going to do good. He actually studied with me. Like, he was a genius in math. And he was a musical prodigy. And he just knew numbers and stuff like that. So he was very intelligent. And so he studied with me and said, this how you're going to take the test. You're going to pass. I stayed in a hotel that night so I could stay focused. I had a dream that he died in that hotel. The next morning I got up. I took the test. I passed. Once I passed the test, I called and everybody's like, what are we going to do? Let's go celebrate. Let's go here. And I said, I need to see my brother, because I had the dream that he died.
Dream, yeah.
So that week later, he actually did die. Wow. So when he died, they called me about my test results. And I said, did I make the mark? It was some sort of GPA that you had to have and all this different stuff. And so basically I asked, I'm like, did I make the mark? Like, am I a certified teacher now? Yeah. And they said, I think Christy was in office at the time. He just changed the GPA requirement. So I said, am I grandfathered in? No, you missed it.
Wow.
So it was like, girl, if you ain't supposed to be teaching, don't teach. And so it just hit me, and I'm like, everything's ruined. Like, my brother's gone, my best friend. Yeah. This is crazy. Like, I'm not a teacher. And it just was like, it all just dumped on me at once.
Jesus.
But at that point, I was numb. And I couldn't think straight. I didn't know what I wanted to do. All I knew was, and I heard God say so clearly to me when I was in Jersey City with my daughter's father, I said, I gotta leave. I gotta go back. And he was like, I knew you was gonna say that. And I just felt like I had to physically give up everything I built up there and leave. Was I scared? Yes. But I was like, you really ain't built nothing, because look, everything you were trying to do, it still didn't work. Right. So it was just like a blank canvas. It was a blank mindset. It was blank. Everything was just done. Yeah. So I left everything that I had up there. I told my landlord, listen, I gotta go. and I moved back down here, and it was the best decision I've ever done in my life.
Did you know that, like, because that's I don't even want to call it even a risk. Like, I can only imagine you go through all the requirements, so to speak, right? All the possible pathways of trying to become a teacher. Your brother walks you through and helping you with studying for the test. The requirements get changed at the last second. You have the dream and everything. Like, obviously now looking in hindsight, you could say like moving was what was there a moment that like really, I guess, solidified it for you? Because you said like it was all a blur. Like, was there a moment where you were like kind of a God, I'm trusting you type of moment, or was like?
Yes, there was. I'm happy you said that.
Talk to me about it. Like because I'm trying to wrap my brain, because that I can imagine that being just a numbing type of experience. Like, I obviously sympathize and understand someone being in that type of position and just saying everything is not working out. And so talk about that one moment, because I can imagine that would have to be like a one moment decision, because that's, like you said, that's dropping everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, talk about that.
So like I said, that week was a blur. That's the same week I got the call from my brother. That's the same week that they told me you didn't make the mark, you know. And I remember sitting on the porch, and I used to smoke cigarettes. And I remember sitting on the porch, and I had no money. Like, I had nothing. Like, it's at that point, it's like you were just doing leave replacement teaching. You were doing substitute teaching. You were getting ready to be certified. And I had nothing. I had no savings. I had nothing. And so I was sitting on my mom's balcony. She lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I was out there smoking a cigarette. And remember, it's still a little warm outside. And I'm like, all right, talking to God, like, just real. You got to be real with God. People don't like to be real with God. They feel like, oh, I can't say certain stuff to him, but he sees you naked. He sees you open. He sees you down. He's the fly on the wall. He sees you at all times. And so I literally said to him, like, you took my best friend. You took my baby. You took the person that was closest to me. You took what was true blood. Like, this is how I spoke to God. Like, me and my brother shared the same exact blood. That's mother and father, same mother, same blood. Like, I have nobody. That was I kind of guess I put him as my everything. My baby brother is like my everything. Yeah. And so I said, he's gone, so you gonna have to show me that you real. He's going, so all I got is you, so you gonna have to do this. Yeah. And that was a very real talk. And, you know, I was drinking and smoking a cigarette. Yeah. But at that moment, it was like, I didn't hear him speak back. I didn't feel a change. Yeah. I didn't see anything. I just was real with my higher power, real with God, saying, this is what I feel. And if you don't step in now, I'm done with everything. Yeah. I'm checking out.
I think that is amazing. So I have a similar experience, not necessarily in the sense of where I lost somebody, but just in the sense where I was at a place where it's like, God, everything I've gone for, everything that I thought you told me to do, everything I aspired to do, at least that I thought made sense, has all not worked. And at this point, God, if you don't do something, like, I'm done. And it's like a level of submission still, but it's like I'm on my last straw, because you still understand God, you're God, but you literally are on the last straw. Like, and I think that's even to your point about how you said, like, you didn't even hear God say anything back. Like, I really identify with that, because I think that's one of the things that makes God so great, is like, he doesn't necessarily need to always speak. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because even your ability to just be vulnerable and say, God, I still trust you, but like, you on, you know what I'm saying? You on strike 2, and if strike 3 happens, you know what I mean? And so with that, it's like, there's still that surrender of allowing God to do it, but you still decided to move. You still decided to do it. So when you actually make that decision to move, and it's like you said, like, you left everything, you started clean slate. How was that transition? Because like, did you know what to begin with? Like, because again, like teaching was now, I'm assuming like just not on the table. Like, but at least you had an understanding. Okay, my purpose is in helping people. Like, what happened next? Like, what was that transition like? Because you talking about like on your last step with God, like God, if you don't do nothing, then like it's up. Talk me through that transition, because in a lot of ways, I can understand you being in a place where it's like you're just angry, like you said, it's just blacked out. So yeah, talk about that transition to where you go from everything makes sense while you're in Jersey City. You know, your brother's gone. You know, you have a daughter now at this point. Like, talk about just that transition for you.
Okay. So when like I said, I didn't have a job. I didn't have a direction. And like I said, it was a lot of detours and a lot of people suggesting, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And so a friend of mine, she's amazing with fashion, like amazing. And one day she's going to be like a superstar. You know, but anyway, long story short, she said to me, hey, you know, why don't you help me do fashion? Like, I'm going to Philly Fashion Week and they asked me to come be a stylist and they asked me to do this, and why don't you come with me? And I ended up going with her. And then my mom asked her to do a show in remembrance of my brother. So we had to get models together and she designed all the pieces. It was so much fun. It was amazing. But I was the one to put all the paperwork together.
Okay.
So it was like I began to see who I was in the midst of it, but still didn't understand who I was.
Yeah.
So I was able to organize her vision. You see what I'm saying? I was able to organize what she's definitely purposed to do this. You know what I mean? So, but I didn't understand. I didn't have a context. I didn't have words. It wasn't like I just was doing. And so I was able to organize her stuff and do this stuff. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll just continue in the fashion field with her. And that wasn't it. I wasn't supposed to do that. So then my parents said to me, because my parents own businesses, they said, we have a nonprofit. It's not doing anything. It's not doing anything at all. And before my brother died, let me rewind a little bit. Remember I was saying I was working for a private school and then I went back to the public school. And so, but in between that time, you know, schools don't have school in summer. So I went to help a daycare that does a summer camp do their summer program. And while I was there, the woman, who I love to this day, literally said to me, hey, you're so intelligent. They give us a grant for our summer camp. Can you write it for me? The other young lady that used to write it no longer writes it. So I'm like, I don't know. I never wrote a grant before. So she's like, I'm going to give you the paperwork. See if you can write it. Oh my God, it was terrible. Like, I mean, I thought I did like horrible, but the writing was great.
Right.
But the budget was not.
Okay.
So they revisited the budget back and forth with me. Long and behold, they got $40,000 the first time I wrote the grant.
And this was back before you made the move.
This is before I made the move.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is before I made the move. So in between the mistake, that the writing of the grant just emerged.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, let's fast forward to today. I'm in the fashion industry with my friend. She's doing a great job, all this stuff, but that's not what I was supposed to do. My parents say I have a nonprofit. You know, we're not doing anything with it. We will give it to you to do what you want to do. Well, I took it and I started to cultivate it and I built programs and we did an after school program. Then we did a summer camp, and in the summer camp, in that first year, we made over $52,000 just in 2 months in the summer camp.
That's amazing.
It was very amazing. It was so much fun. But, you know, and then we did the after school programs and we started to do little things with their nonprofit, and it started to grow and grow. And then, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm doing something well. So I started to notice like, this is what I can do. And then I said, you know what, in the midst of like running their programs, I said, why don't I start my own business?
Yeah.
But I started my business doing disabilities.
Okay.
It's so crazy. Like I took a whole nother detour and I was trying to help people with disabilities, but it was like, that wasn't what I was supposed to do either.
I think I'm sorry to cut you up. I think it's amazing in your story. I'm hearing how you were put in a lot of different situations. You gave your best in those situations, but the doors just seemed to open up as you were detoured and directed through people and through situations. Because it sounds, I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, the effort that you put in towards the teaching was, I'm assuming, the same level of effort you put into the grant writing. 2 different results, seemingly, right? And I think that also speaks to your purpose piece in terms of like, because you've mentioned a couple times of like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing, right? But like in the things that you're supposed to be doing, you're seeing the results. Like it works where you get, like you said, 52,000 in 2 months. Like that's insane. And then I'm assuming it just kind of kept going from there. What was that like? Because that is like a complete 180. like, and I'm trying to put myself there where it's like you experience all of this hardship. Let's just blanket term hardship, where you lose your brother, daughter, just life is life, and at that point, right? But then you also make the major move. You're on your last straw with God. You make the major move of saying, I'm just going to move. I'm just going to leave everything I've built, everything I've known, and move. And so now you are positioned where you're helping your friend, right? And you're helping her in a way that actually works for you. Now, you don't necessarily know it at the time, but you help her in a way that leads you towards eventually the grant writing piece for your parents' nonprofit. And so now you said you're at the place. Like, what was that process? Like, were you conscious of this?
No. And in fact, even in bartending, I didn't realize that I had that gift. So I got promoted so quick from a server to a bartender. It was like crazy quick. And I didn't understand why, but it was because, you get promoted because you do good at sales.
Right.
And if you as a server, if you're why don't y'all try this drink? Why don't you try that drink? And so you're good at sales. And so I didn't understand that I was increasing the company sales, and they put me to bartending. And then from there, I went to another bar and became a bar manager. And so at first their sales were like $10,000 a month. And by month 2, it went from 10 to 20. And by month 3, they were at like $30,000 or more a month.
Wow. Yeah.
And so like, I think that, it was always happening, but I didn't know what my gift was.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing. I just wasn't like aware of it, and I wasn't sensitive to it.
Oof.
I wasn't sensitive to it. So.
So when did you get sensitive to it? Because I'm just assuming that once you got the grant writing, like it was just kind of up from there. And I want to revisit when you actually decided to open the business. But like, when did you actually get sensitive to it? Because I feel like there are so many people. Chelsey, I cannot tell you. There are so many people who have a similar story to you. They're just at a different point, meaning that they have gifts, they have talents that are working, but because they're not aware of it or they're not sensitive to it, they are focusing on what isn't working. They're focusing on what they don't have. They're focusing on all the negatives. When it's like, if you just pay attention to what is in your hand and you become sensitive, like, just talk about when you became sensitive to like what was actually working for you, like in terms of what you were just naturally doing.
Okay. So in 2019, I was doing the disabilities and it was not working. Every client they sent me in the portal and in the pool of clients was dead. And it was, when I say dead, I mean physically dead. It's people in disabilities, literally like physically dead. So they'll send you a lead. You call the lead. You're doing all your due diligence. That person's actually dead. So second person came in, same situation. And so I'm like, oh my God, this is not working either. And I got approved by the government and Medicaid to get funded and do all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, so it must be working. But then every lead that came in was a dead person. And it was just like, oh, this is heartbreaking. Right. And then the friend of mine who was helping me, because you needed 2 people to start this type of company, she was like, I can't do this. So then she left.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, oh my God, what is going to happen? And so in 2019, going into 2020, is before they shut us down. I put together a vision board with my kids. And vision boards are really good because now you got to sit down and really chart out your vision or what it is that God wants you to do or you're supposed to do in life. So I'm not saying join every vision board party because you're just going to be doing stuff. But I'm saying like when you take time to really meditate and say, you know what, I need to change, something's not working. I need to seek God about this or whoever you need to seek about it, you know? But I started the vision board and I was praying as I did it. And I said, what am I supposed to do? And so I'm in the store getting all the materials and I just started grabbing like dollar signs. And I started grabbing like books and started grabbing like letters and glitter. I like poppy glitter. So
nothing wrong with that. Got to need a little glitter.
So I ended up getting the vision board. And when I got the vision board and I started going, I heard God say, put grants. Now, what I didn't tell you was the grants that I wrote in the past, I was not actually compensated for writing them. So I wrote them, but...
If you're looking for accountability, you need to check out the Dream Society. For $20 a month, you can join a community that will give you the support that you need and the accountability that you need to hit your goals every single week. And for $20 a month, it is the best investment that you will ever make in yourself. So I want you to go to dreamsociety.info right now to join, and let's get back to the episode.
I didn't get paid to do it.
Right, you ain't paid, yeah.
So I'm like, God, I'm not doing this. I'm not writing grants for nobody because they didn't pay me before. So I'm literally arguing with God saying like, I'm not doing that.
So this is like round 2 almost.
Yes.
God. Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I helped companies before. They didn't pay me. You see how it turned out. Now my stubbornness is kicked in. My bitterness is kicked in. I'm not doing that. I'm not writing grants. And he was like, put books on there. You're going to write books. Put a house on there. You about to get a house. And you about to do this. And you about to do that. Needless to say, I didn't write a book yet. But I got a house. Yeah. Like I bought a house.
Real talk.
You know, so stuff like on that vision board started to come to pass, and I started writing grants. And he said banks and lenders and all these different things on this board. And so I just started to cross it off as it started to come to pass because 2019 happened. 2020 we came into. Boom, COVID happened.
Yeah.
Businesses are shut down.
We all in the house.
People are calling saying, well, first it started with like my parents' businesses because they had a gym and, you know, gyms were definitely shut down.
Facts.
So my mom's like, what are we going to do? And the next thing you know, all these different applications start popping up. Grants, loans, this, that, right? Wow. COVID help. And so I'm like, oh, all right. This is easy. I did this before. Wow. It was like God opened up the door for me to be able to start writing grants and loans and everything that I was doing. And so I said, okay. So I helped my parents. I helped myself. I helped a couple business owners just flying in. The next thing you know, it was like 300 businesses calling me to help them get funding because their businesses were like caving. Yeah. And I thought like, okay, I'm just going to focus on grant writing. But then people were like, no, I need help with the business plan. No, I need you to help me do this application. No, I don't know how to do my licensing. And I'm like, wait, why don't you know how to do this? Like, you should know this is, and it became natural. Yeah. And I went to school for education. I went to school for psychology. I didn't go to school for business. Yeah. But when God qualifies you to do something, he qualifies you to do something. So it became natural and it was like a hunger. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to study. I got to do this. I want to study more. Now I'm hitting my dean up and I'm saying, hey, you know, what about this in business? And what about that? And then I'm studying the structures. Now I'm in my doctorate and I'm studying how organizations work and I'm studying an institution and all the departments. And it just was like fireworks.
Oh my gosh. Wait. Hold. You're saying a lot and it's getting me excited. Hold on. So I'm hearing you say that all of this acceleration started by you taking the time to just plot it out. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important because I have an event, the Dreamer Symposium, where like essentially the goal is for people to do what you did, where it's let me really sit down and just plot it out. Let me really sit down and plan what I want, right? Whatever that looks like. And even in that, right, for us as believers, like we leave room, God, like, all right, I'm this dedicated time for me to sit down and decide, Lord, what do I want? Right? This is what I want. And so you experience all this acceleration from sitting down and God just revealing to you, grants, banks, loans, house, books, all these different things. That is and the reason why I say that's so incredible, because I know that there are so many people that actually need to take that step as well, where it's not just getting sensitive to what's already working for them, but it's also taking the time to just sit and be with themselves for a while. Like, so in that, my question is, when you were at that point where you're like, okay, I'm going to do the vision board, right? For you, it was in the form of vision boards, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, but yours was a vision board. How intentional was it that you did that with your kids? Like, was that a conscious choice, or did that just happen?
So I want to go back because it did just happen. What happened was from 2018. So I left out an intricate part of my story.
Okay.
I left the church and everything to do with the church at 18.
Okay.
So a lot of my detours, I feel like, could have been avoided if I would have never. I left the church and I also left God.
Okay. At 18.
At 18.
Okay.
So I said the church hurt me so bad I don't see God.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's one thing to leave the church.
Yeah.
It's another thing to leave God.
Big facts.
So when I left God, though I really believe that all those detours happened because I did not stay with God. I didn't have to stay at the church I was at. But anyway, long story short, that whole relationship with him was lost for 10 years until 2018. And in 2018, I made the conscious decision to say, I'm really going to try God now. Now, in 2016, I said to God, what am I going to do?
So basically, when you were at that last straw with God, you were still in that space of kind of church hurt.
Yes.
God, like, you were still in that space.
Yes.
Wow. So
I was still in that space. Yes. Like, I'm not even trying to come back down here. I don't want nothing to do with these church people. I don't want nothing to do with none of this stuff. And yeah. And then 2 years later is when
what brought you to that then? So like so 2016, you're still in the space. So it's like, I guess it's better to say that you had an awareness of God where you were like, God, you took my best friend. If you don't do something right, you're at that last straw. But like you said, you're still in a space of like, I'm off church and God and everything. What brought you back in 2018? Like, what made you say, God, I'm coming back?
When I got pregnant with my son, I went through a very tragic relationship with his father. I just think that we both had our differences and we didn't take the time to know each other. But neither here nor there, it was just another tragedy on top of tragedy.
Okay.
And it was too much all at once.
Yeah.
And when I got pregnant with my son, it was like, girl, you gotta really get yourself together. Like, and I prayed a lot because you pray more when you're in trouble.
Oh, that's a fact.
Well, you ain't supposed to. You're supposed to pray all the time, but I didn't realize that at that point. But that pain was so unbearable. Like, I was like, just go to church.
Yeah.
And I started going to one church and they got me through a point. And I was like, I don't really want to be here no more. So then I left that church and went to another church and, they got me to another point. And then like, it was just, I began to develop my relationship with God rather than following religion.
Wow. Yeah.
And so if it wasn't for that relationship part, I would not have sat down and did the vision board because I literally began to pray every day. I started to be intentional about God and found my identity in it. Yeah. But before that,
you was just
all over the place.
So talk with me a little bit about that pain then, because I identify and I believe that for anyone that is looking to strive for success and accomplish really anything in life, there is almost like a threshold of pain that you have to experience, because in a lot of ways, in the same way we all have goals that we want to go towards, all of us, in my opinion, either have a fear or a level of pain that we're trying to run from. In that, you spoke about essentially two painful experiences, one being your brother passing away, and then one basically your experience with your son's father, and how that basically led you back to God. And I think even in that, I think that just speaks to the detailed nature of God, because in all things, he always just finds a way to redirect us back. Like he gives us the freedom to go, but I do think in that, and I liked how you said the detour still kind of led you back to him. Like, all roads still lead back to God, but it took you experiencing a certain level of pain, with all the pain that you experience, I'm using pain as a blanket term because I'm certain that, there's detail to it. With all the pain that you experienced in 2016 and now 2018, right? Where you say, I'm praying every day, and there's a level of growth there in the terms of your relationship with God. And now you're experiencing this success. How did that pain play into the success, in the sense of did it show itself in work ethic? Did it show itself what I'm saying? How did you, I guess, leverage the pain you had experienced in the success you are now discovering?
I think it took for me to start channeling my mind differently. That level of pain, and I want to be transparent about it, we all experience tragedy, all of us. And so with my brother, I had to be strong for my mom. So even to this day, I cry just a little bit. I can't really get it all out because I've always had to be strong for her.
Yeah.
Even to this day, I still got to be strong for her. She still gets in her moods and stuff like that, which is right.
Absolutely.
You lost your son. That's crazy. That's just, but my brother was very close to me. I have him tattooed on my arm. My mom used to say, y'all thick as thieves.
Yeah.
So but that pain, it felt like torture in my mind. Over and over, reliving your tragedy over and over. And not just my brother, but then you get into a toxic relationship that really wasn't a relationship. It was just a result of you being vulnerable. And it all spiraled back to losing my brother. It was just like a repetitive thing. Okay, I lost my brother and my mindset was off. So now my mindset is so off. Now I'm in this toxic relationship and I literally felt like just killing myself.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do this. Everything I do, I'm failing. And then I started to dig at myself and say, yo, you're becoming a statistic. Now you have 2 different kids, fathers, 2 different children. You're not married. You're what are you doing? What kind of life are you building for yourself? You have a bachelor's, you have an associate, you have all these degrees, but look what your mindset is doing to you. Look what you're doing to yourself. Do you want your kids to grow up like this?
Right.
Do you want your kids to exhibit the same behaviors that you're inviting into your space? And one night, and feeling suicidal, pregnant with my son, my daughter was only 2. Mike Murdoch was on TV. You know how in the middle of the night they just pop up. And he said, what you tolerate comes towards you. What you don't tolerate goes away from you. And so at that point I said, what am I tolerating? What am I tolerating? I had to face myself Chelsey, what are you tolerating that you're causing all of these blockages, that you're causing all of these hindrances to come into your life? What are you tolerating? What are you standing for as a woman? It doesn't matter if you have 2 different fathers for your children. What are you doing that you cause these type of people to come into your life?
Yeah.
So it was a harsh reality hit. And that's when I noticed I was giving too much time in my negative mindset, and then pouring that and then sometimes I was giving time into other people's companies instead of pouring it into my own. And I'm giving everybody all this effort. They're not paying me. I just felt like a doormat. I felt like I was tolerating so much negativity. And I came to a point where it was I need to be by myself. But by myself wasn't by myself. It was really with God.
Yeah.
And I remember laying on my floor in my 2-bedroom apartment, just crying out to him and just can't even form the words. Just, you know how you just cry? I don't know, men cry like women. But,
I know.
You just cry. You just scream and you just cry. And then just a comfort came upon me as I just kept coming to him and seeking him. And my mindset began to change. And then it became driven into finding my purpose.
First off, thank you for sharing that, because I think that's one of the hardest things for people to do, even in the midst of experiencing that level of pain, even in the midst of, easily being able to say, well, they did this, you know, this should have happened, this would have happened. But taking the time to take extreme ownership.
Extreme ownership.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because man, you about to make me cry. Like, because I think that's just what makes the journey so beautiful.
It does.
And because it's like being able to identify this was the moment when I was either going to go left and forget it all, or this was the moment I was going to go right and basically face who I was,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and to hear you articulate just extreme ownership, like that's just what it is, like real self accountability, you know, not blaming nobody for your situation, not blaming anybody or God about what happened to you, like just saying, you know what, like I'm a result of my decisions, right? Kind of to your tolerate point, right? Like my decisions are dictating what I'm tolerating and what I'm not tolerating, and that has to change. And so even in that, like, because I'm just so thankful that you shared that, because I think there are more people that need to do that. Like, just take extreme ownership of your own decisions, you know? And so even with that, and kind of moving forward a little bit, dipping into the success piece where you're not a place where you've gone through knowing how to take extreme ownership, because that's like a skill in itself, like really knowing how to look at yourself. You know what I'm saying? And even in that process, like in some areas you hold yourself accountable, but other ones you're still in the blame game piece. But
it doesn't happen quick.
No, it don't. It definitely don't. It's even as you're doing that, right? So you're working on holding yourself accountable to a new standard. You're tolerating. I don't want to say you're not tolerating things like you used to before. Talk about how that has just helped you now as you are basically in business development, business consulting, business formation. Like, talk about just, let's fast forward it to just like now, where you're at now, the level that you're at now, because you are doing business at an extremely high level. But most people would see the success, right? And they wouldn't necessarily know that a lot of the success was cultivated and birthed from a level of pain.
Yeah, a high level.
Yeah, like, so talk about that, like just how even today with where you're at, like, you know what I'm saying, just how all of it has really played a role.
Like I said, it's not quick. You mentioned something just now. You said a piece, and like that is key. It's happening in pieces. I'm not there. I will never be there, but I will strive for perfection or excellence. I will strive. When I say perfection, I mean maturity. I will strive to mature in my purpose. And so it is constant that I have to say to myself, you need to put up healthy boundaries and not tolerate things that will cause you to have chaos in your life. And so even in business, like, I began in that space, you know, everybody's coming to you and there's tons of people like, oh, she does grants. Oh, she does loans. Oh, she can form my business. Oh, she can do this. Oh, she can do that. And so you get an influx of people. And I used to tolerate people saying, well, I don't have that type of money to pay you, or I don't have enough, or your fees are too high, or, you know, and it was attracting the wrong crowd.
Right.
It was attracting people who lie. It was attracting people who me not setting my price, me not setting my bar, me not setting my boundary, me not setting my standard, and just feeling I can save everybody. That's false. You are assigned to who you are assigned to, and that's it. Fair. Don't try to save the world. Fair. Think about mission, not competition. Like, make sure you are doing what you're doing, and whoever else is doing it in DC or New York or whatever, let them do it, because you can't save everybody. Who's coming to you is coming to you. But I had to find a way to say, I'm not going to tolerate people who are flighty or who are just not doing business properly or don't want to, you know? And so I ended up just saying, like, I can't tolerate this. And I had to start setting, like I said, it's in pieces. That was in 2020, 2021. I was tolerating those type of clients. I was tolerating, whoever trying to just run over me and contract with me and do, oh, I could do this for you and I could do that for you. And I wasn't like taking the time to interview them. And I'll send you a referral and you pay me, and not getting employees that weren't the best employees. And it was a mess because I was tolerating whoever.
Yeah.
To come into my business, whoever to come into my space. And so I got to a place where I was like, no, I'm not doing this. I had to revisit the non-tolerance rule again for me.
Yeah. Ooh, that's so good.
I had to revisit.
Oh, that's so wait. That's so good. That's so good. But let me tell you why that's so good. Oh, let me tell you why that's so good. Because we're us as human beings, as we're in our development.
Mm-hmm.
The same tools can help us at different spaces.
Yes, they can.
But it's up to us to reuse them. Because, yes, there are some things, some lessons we learn that are only specific to that time. But there are lessons that we learn that are meant to be reapplied. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's why I'm just so thankful that you said that, because tolerance, especially, and entrepreneurship is, and somebody watching, whether they're an entrepreneur 9 to 5, it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
But we all have those lessons that we've heard from grandma, we heard from our parents, we heard from a friend, whatever, that if we made the decision to revisit it, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's almost to the pain point where it's like, it's a different type of pain, right? Because you're in a different position, right? Just to the timeline piece that I said. But you revisit the same lesson, and that same lesson now has accelerated you again. And it's that same, and that's just why I say that that's so good.
That is.
Because it can be that simple as just revisiting. And I think, like, for me, one of the things that I like to do, at least every quarter, I like to sit down and just, I'm not necessarily one of the people where I'm like, oh, I want to have a grateful hour. Like, 3 things you're great. That's not me. Like, that just doesn't work. Like, I know it works for people. That's not me. But I do like to take the time just to reflect. Just reflect. Like, good, bad, business is up, business is down. Like, just take time to reflect back to when things were at a really low point. And that almost like recenters me. But it also gives me the chance to think back on what lessons did I get that I might need to
pull forward.
Yeah, that might, you know what I mean? Because all of us, and I think that's the thing. It's. I know Simon Sinek calls it the infinite game or something like that. But it's always a game. And even with us as entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship, as I've learned, is more about self-discovery and personal development than it really is about business. Because it's like, the better person you become, the better business becomes. And so I think even with what you shared, how that you had to revisit the tolerating piece, right? That tolerating lesson, how that transformed how you operated in your business, because you then changed the type of clientele you would even entertain. You changed the type of people you would hire and everything like that as a result of just revisiting that personal development piece, because that was the same type of piece that helped you personally.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't even a business tip, right? That wasn't something you learned in a mastermind or like that. Like, that was on some personal, I'm going through life right now. This ain't got nothing to do with no dollar sign, got nothing to do with no business. This is life. And you were able to take that tidbit, take that nugget, and apply it now to business. And so talk with just about how that helped business grow, like how that transformed things for you. Now you've applied that same lesson again.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
So, honestly, it if you talk about financially alone, me scaling back, saying I'm not going to keep the same type of people on. I will run my business myself until, stuff starts falling into the right place and I build the correct culture. And I'm very big on culture and organizations. But until I build the correct culture, I am going to stay alone. I took it all the way down. Everybody's gone. I'm like, nope, I'm going to stay alone until I build the right culture. And so once that was it, it was like I was back at not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
By myself. I was just back at the alone stage and just like back at, what are the answers? I need help. I don't know who to hire. I don't even have the money to hire because I spent all my money on my business. I spent all my money on employees, the wrong people, the wrong ages, the wrong everything. So I was back at zero again.
Yeah.
And so now, as I took that moment, I had a meeting with one of my good friends. And the next thing you know, he said, I'll partner with you. Now, he was already successful, but he's like, I see what you're going to do, and it's going to be global.
I like that.
So I was like, what? Really? I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. He like scheduled the first one. Then I went and talked to my cousin at her house for a little bit. And I told her what I want to do. And she was like, I think you should do it. I'll do the flyer for you. And that was, like I said, that was the beginning of 2020. And, you know, she did the flyer. And the next thing you know, like, I went through the stuff with the employees. And after that, I was back at zero again. And the next thing you know, I'm just like, all right, stick to who was beneficial and reevaluate that. And so my CPA, he was beneficial at the moments of everything happening. And then after that, we got really, really tight. And I started to just work with him.
Mm-hmm.
But we both had value. He was in business longer than me. He was a certified public accountant. And we both went to school. So as we began to talk, it was, okay, you both have college experience. You needed to work in this field of work. So he's like, I think you should hire interns. I'm like, hey, that's a great idea. Hired 2 interns. They had their associate's degrees. And I was like, okay. One of them was amazing. Both of them were really great kids. But one of them was just like, wow, this kid is like...
Mm-hmm. On it.
Just on it, like really. And he was very dedicated and stuff like that. So the next thing you know, as he stayed on, you know, I was like, okay, I'll continue to keep you on and pay. You know what I mean? I'll pay you. Just show me that you could keep up on those work and stuff like that. And he was working out and everything. And then the next thing you know, another young lady came into my life, and I'm like, I still need help. So I prayed and said, God, should I do this? Should I make this move? And, you know, at first I was a little hesitant because everything I've been through, hire her. No, she didn't have the schooling that the other people had, but she was available, willing, and ready. She was available, willing, and ready to learn as much as she could. She was available. She was willing. She wanted to do it. She had a zeal for it, and she still does. And she's all in, like, what do you want me to do? You need me to do anything? And so that was another attribute I had to see that I needed to be on my team.
God really put a lot of people in your life. Like, he really put, like, even as you were in the midst of, let's just say, going your own way, right? Prodigal son type. You were just out doing your own thing. You still had God's hand over you because he was sending you people. He sent you the professor that told you, hey, you're smart. Maybe apply it somewhere else, right? You just had people help you in your detours, which is why I asked you earlier about how, like, where were they mistakes or the detours? Like, I think there's a difference. And, like, you had people kind of guiding you and showing up at the right times.
The right times. That's the key. People will show up at the wrong times too, though.
That's facts.
Somebody that used to mentor me said to me, the imitator always comes before the real thing.
That's good.
And so now I'm always questioning, are you imitating or are you the real thing? Who sent you? Like, are you the imitator? Are you the one that's the con artist? Are you the real deal? And so I'm tired of going through that. So now it's like, take what you know and make sure that you are aware and alert.
Yeah.
So
I want to go back a little bit in your story because you had mentioned how, you know, you had kind of built your business, then you kind of went back to ground zero when you were going through the whole employee thing. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, it said that you kind of built it up and then went back to zero again, right? Was it twice back to zero or once?
So I built my business and I got all the employees, then I went back to zero.
Okay.
And then it was just once.
Okay. So with that, in the same way, what gave you the grit, and I use grit intentionally, to just say, I'm going to figure this out? Because it sounds like the same level of intention you used when you were working to become a teacher, you're figuring life out. Like, what was it about business that made you say, I'm going to figure this out?
That's good. because I had a taste of what it could be.
Mm.
So it's like, even though I had the wrong employees, stuff still was pouring in. It was just not organized enough. It wasn't the best. I began to see details. You know, like,
That's good.
it was details. Like, I started to pay attention to certain details. Like, all right, my employees cannot work remote. There were certain things that I was allowing, and I'm like, okay, so implement this, implement that. And so when I started to implement, they started to fall off.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I started to raise the bar. And I think that, you know, I think we had this conversation before, but pressure produces diamonds. So when you start to apply that pressure to an employee and they don't, not saying be disrespectful, you should be a transformational leader.
Absolutely.
You should be all in, considerate, all of that. However, when you don't apply pressure, they will run all over you. And so just apply just enough for pressure, just enough, because you don't want to break them, but just enough of pressure. And they left and they, you know, they were messing up more and it was just not working. Now it comes into play where you're like, okay, I saw the detail that I see my mistake.
Yeah.
So now I can correct it.
Oh, that's the good. So, Jim Rohn, he used to say, "Success leaves clues," and it sounds like for you, you were able to have that grit because you saw the clues. That while there were some things in your case, it was the employees. That part wasn't right, but you saw the clues to at least always have a foundational belief. I have something here, like whatever I got going on here, and like it sounded like you were still at a point where you're still trying to figure out what it was, but you knew you had something.
Right.
Like,
that's exactly right.
So what was the point at which that allowed you to really leverage those clues? Like, was it just a process of just, because you said, you know, you kind of started to shift and kind of put pressure, and I honestly think even, I don't know if pressure is a one variation, but I also think it's a level of refining. Because you're learning too, right? Like as a business owner, like hiring and managing people is a whole skill in itself. Like that's a whole thing in itself. But as you're learning, you're refining, and in your mind, in your case, you're refining your learning. But to your employees, they're seeing it in policy and procedure and everything like that. But that also kind of trimmed the fat, as you, so to speak. Like you were saying that as you started to kind of implement new rules, new policies and stuff like that, they fell off. Now they did what they did, which is fine, but you were growing and learning within that. And so now I know that you have an amazing team with that. Talk about that. Like, do you ever think about that? Like, have you ever taken time to really think about how you were at a point where, you know, team wasn't so good. Let's just blanket term. Team wasn't that good. To now you have a team that is on it. You have a team that's dedicated. They show up. They're loyal. Like, what's that like? Know that you're that level of leader.
Okay, so this is good because I actually had. So I believe the Book of Proverbs says, "A victory is won with many advisors."
Yes.
So some of the people that came into my life over this course, right? For example, you know, one of the very important people in my life, he said he is a servant leader. He's all in. And so when I watch his leadership skills and when he got promoted and everything like that, I had already went through not having employees and not having them. And in the midst of me going through that, he was promoted to being a supervisor on his job. So now as he's a supervisor, I'm watching his leadership skills. He already had it, you know, all that time, but I'm literally watching his leadership skills. I'm paying attention to him. I'm talking to him about it. Then at the same time, I'm also speaking to my bishop's wife and I'm talking to her and I'm letting her know this is what happened and that's what happened. And she's giving me, you know, she was a leader because she was first lady. She's the bishop's wife. They had churches and conferences and people under them. So I'm getting her leadership advice. And so you got to make sure that the advice is from the right people. But as you're paying attention, you're listening to certain things. And then always Dr. Miles Monroe.
Big facts.
Always
Miles
Dr.
Monroe.
Miles Monroe.
That's a fact.
So, and with all of this, these two specific people generally talking to me through this unsurety, like I'm going from here to zero, that was helping me to choose the right team.
Talk talk about the importance of a mentor, please. Do it.
Okay.
A mentor, coach. Why do people need mentors? Why do they need coaches?
Okay, so first of all, you need to be accountable to somebody. So often people think, and this is really good, because in your doctorate they give you a committee when you're writing your dissertation, right? So your first person is your mentor.
Right.
Your second person is your first reader, and then you have a second reader. And so mentors and mentees, it's a two-way street. It's not just the mentor always calling the person that they're mentoring. It is the mentor and the mentee constantly communicating back and forth, reaching out to each other.
Right.
But if that's not like that, the relationship won't work. And the result of having a mentor where it should be successful, it won't be.
Right.
So it's a two-way street, but it's very important because people need accountability. People need someone, like I said, victories are won with many advisors.
Yes.
If you sit here trying to do everything yourself and you're not talking to nobody,
Right. Yeah.
that's too much weight on you.
Absolutely.
You're literally going nowhere. You're literally, and my dad, I hate when he say it. He get on my nerves, but I love him. But when he says like insanity is doing the same thing over and over, and I'm like, it's right, because I am in my own circle when I don't speak to someone who I'm accountable to.
Yeah.
Accountability could be not, it's important to have a coach, important to have a mentor. I'm big on therapy, stuff like that. You need to have somebody you're accountable to, that you're comfortable with, to be able to give it all to, but they're the right leadership. Yeah.
And I think even in that, just to piggyback even on that, there is a level of humility that's necessary.
Oh, 100%.
For that, because you can have a conversation with a coach, mentor, whatever. If you don't have the humility to allow them to pour into you, then it's a wasted conversation. You can sign up, you can pay for the program, but if you don't have the humility to say, I don't know this, I'm not good at this, and I recognize you being the person that is.
Yep.
Now if you don't recognize it, then you're wasting your time from the jump.
This is tough because the older crowd don't want to hear from the younger crowd at times, and the younger crowd don't want to hear from the older crowd at times. And it's just like, you really do need that level of humility.
Yes.
But even in business, people think, like, for example, me, it's called Morph Mentoring because we're trying to morph what mentoring is. We're trying to transform what mentoring is. That means we both need accountability.
Yeah.
You as the business owner in your trade, us as the back end, your organizational development, we both have to be accountable. If you don't, it's actually in my contract. If we don't speak for 30 days, your contract is void. You have to communicate. You have to. And when you don't, things are not going to go up. They're going to go down. They're going to go up, down, or just down.
Yeah.
You're not going to continue to go up without that accountability.
It's continuously pouring in. I think that's so good. And so you're at a position now where Morph Mentoring is helping a whole lot of business owners. I'm just thankful to be in connection with you. So to kind of wrap it up a little bit, at Craft Your Dream, I've identified that there's 3 core values that everyone needs in order to accomplish a dream. All right. First one being clear vision. You have to really understand where you want to go, why you want to go, and everything that comes along with it. Second thing is excellence. Operating in a way that's excellent, operating at your top capacity, being your best in everything that you do, just excellence. And then third, doing it consistently, right? Consistency. You need to be able to have the clear vision, keep it at the front of your mind, do things in excellence consistently in order to accomplish anything you want. What are your core values with everything that you've been through, everything that you've experienced from pain to success? What are your core values that are allowing you to not only be where you are, but accelerate and help you grow?
Number 1 is seeking God. Number 1 is that relationship with Him. Even when I feel like, and this is going to happen, you're not going to seek God all the time. You might miss a mark. You might not dot every I and cross every T. But I find that even when I say something out my mouth, I have to not be afraid to go back because I didn't seek God. So, for example, if I say, oh, yeah, I'll do this, and then I sit back and be like, oh, wait a minute, hold on, let me go pray. And I pray I have to be okay with the fact that I got to go back. I'm sorry, I can't do this. I made a commitment that I cannot keep. So to avoid that, I just want to try to seek God first all the time. That's a core. That's number one.
Yeah.
I'm trying so hard. It's not easy for any human. It's not easy, but I am trying my very best. And I literally said to God recently, I am intentional about this thing.
That's good. Yeah.
So that's one of them. Number two is diligence. The Bible says that men who are diligent in their work, they go before kings.
Yeah.
And so if you want to go before kings, you got to be diligent. What is diligence? I don't care if it's 2:00 in the morning and you get a notification that a new grant came out or a new product came out that you're selling or whatever the case is, you get your butt up and you screenshot it, or you make a voice memo, or you take a note real fast. If you have a dream and it's pertaining to your purpose or whatever, you get up and you do it. And people say, oh, get up at 3 a.m. and, it makes you successful. Get up at this time, that time. Listen, that's for y'all. I can't do it. But at the end of the day, my diligence is whenever it just comes, I gotta make sure that I'm on it. And then making sure that even if it is midnight, if a task that I have to do is not done by that time, I am going to try my very best to do it, or first thing in the morning, I'm gonna do it. Communication with your clients. I'm really big on communication and my relationships.
That's good.
My relationships are more valuable than any financial gain. If my relationships are compromised, or, it's just, I can't lose the relationships. I gotta be diplomatic. I gotta be neutral. I gotta be true. I gotta be integral. Like, these are my core values. Integrity. I gotta do the right thing in front of everybody and not in front of nobody. Like, we're tested in private. We tested in public, but my integrity is key. So these are my core values.
I love that. So seeking God, diligence, and then you said relationships. Mm-hmm. That's powerful. Well, what are some ways people can connect with you? Because they've heard your story. They know that, you do grant writing. You help people with their business structure and everything like that, operations. How can people connect with you?
We're on Instagram, Chelsey Brunson, or Morph Mentoring, and Facebook, Morph Mentoring, Chelsey Brunson on Facebook. And then if you just want to email us, you can just email us at info@morphmentoring.com.
Awesome. Well, hope that you enjoyed this conversation. It was, wow. But I appreciate you for checking out another episode of Dreamer Talks. If you haven't, go check out a past episode, check out the Dreamer Symposium, check out the Dream Society. All those great resources are down in the description link below. But again, I appreciate you. Always remember, your dream is possible as long as you're willing to work for it. I'll see you on the next episode.